Try to tell me with a straight face that the Golden State Warriors are not an interesting bunch this season. The way that they are stumbling into the 2020s, into the year 2020, it is absolutely like a movie. It happened just like a movie. First of all, you go back to the first half of the 2010s and that's where they first break out. After being a surprise team in the 2013 playoffs, after nearly beating the Los Angeles Clippers as a young team in the 2014 playoffs. In 2015, they're champions. They come out, they win 67 plus games. Steph Curry's the MVP. It was really like the most out of nowhere thing that happened this decade, I would say. Nobody was sitting in 2013 or 14 saying that, yep, the Warriors they're bound to be champions. They are due to be champions. The only person that I saw call it before it actually happened was Coach Nick from Basketball Breakdown. If you go watch his video on the Warriors before the 2015 season, he was looking at some of the sets they were running and things Steve Kerr had changed. And he called immediately in the preseason that this could be a team he could see playing deep into the playoffs or into June. He said something, I don't know. Dude is like the Einstein of basketball. Anyways, we're here now. We are here 3 championships later, everything that happened with the Golden Dynasty, the super team and Kevin Durant. And here we are now, and magically they are back to square one. Pretty close back to square one. And injuries just tore them apart. After all that nice and rosy success they were having, DeMarcus Cousins gets injured so that he's not as effective in the playoffs. Klay Thompson goes down in the last game, Kevin Durant before that. And so we already knew that DeMarcus Cousins was leaving, and I said KD was leaving the whole season as well, wasn't 100% sure. And now he and Klay are both gone, and Klay is not going to be back until January at the best. And so their roster is back to its humble beginnings, pretty close to its humble beginnings. When they start this season, it will be the thinnest Warriors roster we've seen since back when nobody really knew them, nobody was really expecting anything for them. The returning core Warriors that will actually be playing will be Steph and Draymond, and then you're going to throw D'Angelo Russell on top of that. But have y'all seen the roster? After those 3, my god is it thin. There's names there that I don't think some people would recognize, like some names that you will not have a face to. Outside of Alec Burks and Willie Cauley-Stein, Google is probably going to be your best friend. So we'll get to that. Let's talk about Steph and D'Angelo Russell because that is the most interesting thing. That was the move that I woke up, because that trade happened at night, I believe, the sign and trade, and I woke up to see that and I was like, definitely a chin rubber. It brings you pause because you think about Steph Curry being the best point guard in the NBA, and you think about the success D'Angelo Russell had playing point guard last year. You think about these being 2 smaller guards, maybe not in height. D'Angelo Russell's not really that short or anything, but really more in like size and strength as it pertains to the defensive end. And then on offense, you again wonder because D'Angelo had all that success playing point guard for the Nets, and now he is no doubt going to be playing the 2. And then when Klay Thompson comes back, I guess Klay is going to be the starting 3, or maybe they will do some interchanging. I don't really know yet, but at least on offense, after doing some digging, I'm pretty confident that Steph and D'Angelo Russell is going to be a very positive thing. The Warriors are just going to have to amend how they've been using the backcourt in the last few years, because of course with the backcourt of Steph and Klay, Steph is going to be doing most of the ball handling. Klay is way more effective running off screens, way more effective in the post, way more effective doing other things than just straight up creating with the ball. Yeah, that's gonna have to be amended because D'Angelo Russell is not great at coming off of screens and shooting. That is Klay Thompson's bread and butter, and he almost never used the post last year, which again, you know, Klay Thompson's back to the basket game was pretty good. That is something that we saw improve throughout the years. Now the good news is the offense between this backcourt can be very dynamic because D'Angelo Russell has a lot of other things he can do. First of all, he is excellent at creating, which is something that Klay Thompson again was not doing much of, but Russell is great at a lot of these same creating situations that Steph is great at, which makes me wonder how much they are going to let him initiate, because we know that Steph is excellent off ball, and his effect on the defense from running around the floor, running off screens, and the gravity that he pulls with him, that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch while D'Angelo Russell is maybe handling pick and rolls, ISO situations. So in a way, a much lesser version than what they had with Kevin Durant, because obviously D'Angelo is no KD. But my point is, Russell is another player that has proven he can create off the dribble. So whatever they had Steph Curry doing off ball while Kevin Durant was creating, you can bring those same elements to this offense, or something like it. And I think that's the route Steve Kerr is gonna go, because I doubt with the season D'Angelo Russell just had that they are just going to want to make him a straight up catch and shoot player, just try to make him duplicate what Klay Thompson was doing. I doubt that's going to make either party happy. And for that reason, I'm starting to think that my expectations for Super Steph this year, maybe I should temper them just a little bit, just a little. They're still going to need incredible output from Steph Curry to offset what they've lost, how thin this roster is. So on that front, yes, but also him and D'Angelo Russell are going to be sharing a lot of the shots and a lot of the ball handling duties. I think that's how this is most effective. But that's okay because this is nothing like the Harden and Westbrook situation. Steph and D'Lo are very dynamic offensive players and they don't step on each other's feet at all. They don't take away from each other's game. Also, the great Draymond Green once said, if Steph Curry cannot make you better, then you just suck. And being that D'Angelo Russell has a lot of skills that will adapt nicely to the shooting guard position, I don't see this as, oh, why did they just stick 2 point guards together? How is this going to work? No, this is much more dynamic. This is also very helpful for Steph because this is not going to be like, what game was that in the finals? Whatever game Klay Thompson didn't play. And you remember Steph had to score like 50 points the hard way and they brought out the box and won on him. It's not going to be like that all season. No defense is just going to be able to pick on Steph all year because they brought in D'Angelo Russell. Although I mentioned earlier Russell is not great at coming off of screens and shooting, and I'm talking about off-ball screens by the way, the kind that the Golden State Warriors like to run a lot of. He is a great decision maker off of them. He can pass off of them really well. The Warrior system has always been predicated on ball movement, so while D'Angelo Russell is coming off the screen, you can bet something else is going to be going on the other side of the court, and Russell will be hitting the open man for easy buckets. Definitely going to keep an eye on how many pick and rolls the Warriors incorporate for D'Angelo, being that that was his main source of attacking last year with the Nets. And while Klay Thompson is out, it would probably be a good thing for the Warriors to let D'Angelo Russell get comfortable and run some of those sets so they can be successful and actually make the playoffs. The West is stacked, so the more successful that Curry and D'Angelo Russell are, especially on the offensive end because they are going to have to make up for the defense somewhere, they'll have a better chance on holding the fort until Klay comes back. Now, when he does get back, how does that work? My main question is on the defensive end because normally when Steph has a really tough matchup, you let Klay handle it, right? Well, okay. If Klay is handling either Steph or D'Angelo's man, then who's guarding the small forward on the opposing team? I specifically wonder what is the Warriors lineup going against a team like the Clippers? Clippers will have Paul George at shooting guard, most likely Kawhi at the small forward. Klay can only guard one of them, and then the other is going to be left to D'Angelo Russell. You're gonna need Draymond down low to be contending with the likes of a Montrezl Harrell. Yeah, that you see what I mean? That's kind of tough. When the Warriors play the Rockets, Steph now has to defend Russell Westbrook. I know in the past they might like to let Klay take Russ sometimes, but Klay is going to have his hands full with Harden all the time. Their starting lineup is much less versatile on defense now than it has been in previous years when they had KD backing up Klay or Harrison Barnes. That size difference, that's gonna be interesting to watch. That's the one reason why I'm not expecting like some miracle story where the Warriors went through everything they went last year and now they're just gonna recover and Klay's gonna come back and they're still gonna be in the finals. It's gonna be tough with this roster. Now on offense, it's not gonna be a problem. They're still gonna have 4 all-star level players. Whatever Steph and Russell are running before Klay Thompson comes back that makes the offense very dynamic and successful, now you just throw Klay Thompson right on top of that and he's gonna be running off of screens. He is going to also be pulling on the gravity of the defense. That is just going to make the offense more successful than it already was. That's it. If the Warriors do incorporate more pick and rolls into the offense for D'Angelo Russell with him as the ball handler initiating it, now you've got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson running around the floor pulling on the gravity, while D'Angelo Russell is totally in his element. Look, there are so many ways this offense can work. That is not the problem here. The problem I didn't really even think about is that Klay is also going to be coming off of a torn ACL. That should not affect his offense. That should, however, at least for this season, especially coming back in the middle of the season and having to get his conditioning and all that, it should definitely affect his defense. The Warriors should not be a great defensive team this year. I just don't see it. Not being a great defensive team in the same conference as guys like the Lakers and the Clippers, how do they even match up with the Lakers? The Lakers have 2 guys they were never able to figure out when they were great defensive teams, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Not that they were able to ever figure them out in the first place, but now those guys are on the same team. What is their defensive strategy against those guys? I think the Warriors are going to do better than people expect, but not good enough for a miracle story. And I think that's what's wrong here because that is what the expectations will be. Now, if you think back to the Barbershop talk I did a long time ago, probably like in March of this year, February of this year, when I was saying if Kevin Durant were to leave the Warriors, the spotlight that would be created on Steph Curry being that he's had it kind of easy these last few years. The team has always been unbeatable and so talented that there was no serious test to these guys, I don't think. There was no serious test to Steph Curry's legacy since 2016. team? Well, you're here now, and all eyes are going to be on how good are the Warriors without that super competitive advantage that they've had for so long. So while you may definitely get a better Steph Curry than you've had in the last few years, and you may even get Super Steph just because that bench is so thin, I think an expectation that they would get Clay back and just everything go back to normal and they'll be fine and they'll shock the world, I don't think those are fair expectations. Now, I do think this team would be a bitch to deal with in the playoffs. Say, you know, the start of the season doesn't go that great. They're trying to incorporate D'Angelo. That takes some time to figure out. That takes them games to figure out, which in the West can be the difference between 2nd and 8th place, just like that. If the Warriors end up like a 7th or 6th seed, yeah, nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to deal with the Warriors in the first round. Absolutely not. Especially because they'll have Clay at that time and they will probably be better than their record reflects. But I would honestly say if they had a top 4 seed going into the playoffs in this tough Western Conference, in this wretched Western Conference, I would say that would be a major accomplishment for them. So in the best case scenario, the best case scenario for them, it would be that Steph and D'Angelo just right off the bat are able to click on offense. They are able to incorporate elements that they've had for the last few years where they had 2 ball handling scorers in KD and Steph Curry. They are able to give D'Angelo Russell some pick and roll options just so that he's comfortable, right? Just so he's comfortable with the offense, because that's how he was so successful last year. And if it doesn't cost them so many games to figure out, then maybe they end up with the top 4 spot. They get that spot so that they don't have to deal with a Lakers or a Clippers or even the Rockets in the first round. Teams that they are not going to match well defensively, teams that is going to put a lot of stress on Klay Thompson, a lot of responsibility on him. That'd probably be good for them so that they can finesse their way a little bit further. And there, I would say, to be honest, conference finals. I think that's the best case scenario for this team. Defense wins championships. I'm not going to put a team that I don't think is going to be great defensively in the finals. And I don't know, say somehow they get the Rockets in the second round and Harden and Westbrook never actually figured it out, so now you have the Warriors able to get to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, something like that is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario for this team, it could get as bad as not making the playoffs. I truly think that. I think that's the worst case scenario for them. I think that's the floor. And I think that's the floor only because this is the Western Conference where you can be the 2nd seed and have a 2.5 game lead on the 9th seed. That can happen. It's not that this isn't a playoff team and they're so terrible. It's that they are questionable right now. They have offensive and defensive questions to figure out, and there are a lot of teams in this conference that are better put together. They're not going to have to be figuring out mid-season acquisitions because of injuries, things of that nature. So if the Warriors get off to a slow start, that could easily spell a non-playoff year, very easily. So that is probably the craziest range you will see in these season previews, from the Western Conference Finals to not making the playoffs at all. I think a lot of you would agree both of those scenarios are very possible for the squad, just depending on how things go. Anyways, that is my Golden State Warriors season preview. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more previews, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub. Let me know what team I should do next, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.